You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast at savage.love.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
All right, no peeking. Who won the gold medal in men's pole vaulting at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics? You don't know. I didn't know. But I know now because I just looked it up. Armand Duplantis from Sweden. Fucking adorable Muppet-faced boy I've never heard of. If I watched the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, which took place in 2021 because of COVID, but they called them the 2020 Olympics anyway, I forgot about Armand Duplantis. But I am never going to forget where I was when I found out about France's Anthony Ammirati, Olympian, pole vaulter, and a man who went crazy viral worldwide this weekend, not because he won a gold medal in pole vaulting. That is obviously not a route to fame, but because his dick, his absolutely massive monster of a cock, hit the crossbar the rest of his body had just cleared and knocked it off, knocking his dick and the rest of him out of the competition. It was the boy-yoing heard round the world. The video, what happens in the video, it's hard to describe. And I probably don't need to describe it to you. The video was everywhere all weekend, still circulating. But just in case you didn't see it, as a courtesy to our listeners, we will post a link to the video in our show notes. Man, you train all your life hoping to get famous for one thing. Your moment comes, the eyes of the world are on you, and you get famous for a different thing. The existential dread of it all. It's like a play by Jean-Paul Sartre. If Sartre wrote plays about hot guys in tight lycra singlets with big dicks, which he did not do. But I wish he had, because I would love to get inside of the head of someone who woke up one day to do some ultra-elite sports thing, someone famous in his niche but unknown to the world, and then wake up the next day attached to the most famous dick on the planet. Oh my God, the headlines. French pole vaulter's bulge costs him Olympic medal. Variety. French pole vaulter Anthony Ammirati misses Olympic final after manhood catches on crossbar. New York Post. My favorite, Daily Beast. French pole vaulter's massive penis dashes Olympic dreams. The upside here for Ammirati is that he's going to be remembered forever, unlike Duplantis. Remember Duplantis? He's the guy I mentioned at the top of the intro that you've probably already forgotten about, the Muppet-faced Swede who took gold in pole vaulting in 2020. You certainly don't remember John Galfone of France, who won gold in pole vaulting in 1996. Really, the only Olympic person who pole vaulted a little bit I could name before this weekend was Caitlyn Jenner, which wasn't even her name when she won a gold medal at the Montreal Olympics in 1976. The morning of his fateful jump, Ammirati had fewer than 2,000 followers on Instagram. He gained 130,000 new followers in the 24 hours after that jump, and that number is still climbing. Because unlike Duplantis, and certainly unlike Caitlyn fucking Jenner, everyone wants to see what Ammirati is going to do next. A porn site offered him $250,000 to do it on their platform. Look, lots of people watch the Olympics to ogle the athletes, which, yes, some of them are very young, and that can be problematic, but everybody knows it. This was the year, though, when some of the athletes decided to stop pretending that that wasn't part of what was going on, because they should get paid for it. In the run-up to this year's games, there were a bunch of news reports about Olympic athletes with OnlyFans accounts, which is a new thing. The British diver Jack Laffer created an OnlyFans account this year where fans could, for a price, help support his Olympic journey by seeing and ogling more of him for his own profit rather than NBC's profit. Obviously, Laffer told The Telegraph, "I've got what people want and I will happily cash in on that." His fellow Brit divers, Noah Williams, Daniel Goodfellow, Maddie Lee, they all have OnlyFans accounts too. none of these athletes so far, none of the current Olympic athletes with OnlyFans accounts are sharing X-rated content, but I'm guessing at some point, some of them will. And I'm pro that. I want to live in a world where people can make and share whatever they want to make and share online. humpfilmfest.com/submit. I want to live in a world where people can be their full selves sexually online and still be movie stars and sports heroes and successful politicians and high school teachers and pole vaulters. A world where we can share everything we are, online and off, without fear of being cut from the team or fired from our job. Look, I don't know if Anthony Ammirati wants to create an OnlyFans account or make porn, take the money and run, and he certainly doesn't have to. But if he decides to, now that he has, if not a gold medal, the world's attention, if he wants to monetize that thing, and the thing I'm referring to here, of course, is the world's attention, and it gives him joy to do it, he should. We live in an attention economy. Ammirati and his giant dick have the world's attention right now. I can't wait to see what he does with it. Oh, and remember all those drag queens in the opening ceremony for the Paris Olympics, which Republicans tried to blame on Kamala Harris? Because, like casting tie-breaking votes in the U.S. Senate, the Vice President of the United States has final approval over Olympic opening ceremonies staged by all other countries. Of course, those queens all wanted to be in front of the cameras, but if men competing in pole vaulting in the next Olympics don't want what happened to Ammirati to possibly happen to them and their dicks, they need to get some of those queens out from in front of the cameras and back into the locker rooms to show those boys how to tuck. All right, coming up on today's show, tons of your Qs, lots of my A's, and coming up on the Magnum, Jeff Guenther, better known as TherapyJeff. He has 1 million followers on Instagram and a new book out, Big Dating Energy. Jeff and I talk dating apps, scheduling sex, how capitalism impacts our relationships, and Jeff doubles down on a promise he made me when I appeared on his podcast earlier this year. All that coming up on today's show. Now let's get to that first call. This episode is sponsored by Hims, affordable access to ED treatment, all online. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/savage.
This episode of the Lovecast is brought to you by the good folks at Squarespace. They make it easy to build a beautiful website, blog, or online store. Head on over to squarespace.com/savage for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
This episode is brought to you by Talkspace, therapy made easy. Get $80 off your first month when you go to Talkspace.com/savage and enter promo code SPACE80.
Hi, Dan. I'm a late 30s cis-bi woman in the Northeast, married to a wonderful cis-straight man for over 15 years, and we have a young child together. Long story short, some of the spice has left our relationship, and I want more. We've been sexually exclusive from the beginning, and it was really quite hot initially, but it's become routine, good but routine. He's also been dealing with some mental health challenges, and the weight of that plus his meds have taken a toll on his libido in recent years. And no, we can't really adjust the meds. I've been asking for more affection, romance, and sex, and he tries for a few days, but then it's like he forgets and retreats back to the status quo. Thanks largely to your influence, I've proposed involving a special guest star or two in the bedroom to spice things up, and in theory, he's open to it. But so far, it's all been in fantasy. And truthfully, I think I'd like to explore some E&M and have some friends with benefits on the side so I could have some more adventures and explore my bisexuality. Anyways, enter the gardener. He's hot, he's flirty with me, and he's just right, and that he knows none of our friends or colleagues. We're both professionals, so we have to be discreet. I told my husband about my attraction, and he was a bit surprised, but found himself turned on by my attraction and the idea of bringing him into the bedroom. So we had some great sex after that conversation. I did some reading, and I've been trying to talk to him more. I told him, for example, that I don't want to have my first ever threesome with a guy I've never hooked up with when I haven't been with anyone new in like 15 years. It would feel like a high-stress performance. But he says he's not sure if he'd be comfortable with me fucking him alone before we all got together. And from there, we haven't really moved. He doesn't seem to want to talk much about this, and I want to be sensitive. He's got his own challenges, but they're fairly chronic. I told him I'd be fine with him dating and screwing another woman, and we'd both have absolute veto power and could discuss and define what is and what's not allowed, but he just hasn't said much in return. I realize I'm asking a lot. I've made him a PUD or an E&M under duress, and I'm asking to change the terms of our long-term agreement. But at the same time, he's not been coming through for me in ways I've been asking for years. And he clearly finds my attraction to another person to be hot. And I think if I had someone else to satisfy these needs for me, that the pressure would be off him and our relationship would be richer. But I can't force him to talk. And at this stage of my life, I'm absolutely not willing to blow it all up over this. But I also really want it. What do you think, Dan? What should I do next? How much time can I give him and how much can I keep pushing?
It's weird that you would say you're not willing to blow it all up over this. And by this, I think we mean the gardener, when you've already risked blowing it all up over this. You told your husband you want to fuck the gardener. And the fallout from that wasn't divorce. The fallout from that was your husband was aroused by the idea of you fucking the gardener and fucked the shit out of you. Kind of a Yahtzee, not an all the way there kind of Yahtzee where you got to fuck the gardener, but definitely a really good sign of the direction in which your marriage and your relationship with your husband might be moving. When you meet somebody, you first get together, you're the adventure they're on, they're the adventure you're on. Eventually, it doesn't feel so adventurous anymore. And people will often misinterpret that as like the spark has gone out, there's something fatally wrong with us in our relationship. That's just time and togetherness. The adventure that was effortless and hardwired and built in at the start, that's not possible after 15 years. If you want to feel that adventurousness again, the adrenaline, the cortisone, you've got to link arms and go on an adventure together, and you already have a yes from your husband. Your husband told you yes to a three-way with the gardener, and you responded with no to the three-way with the gardener because you want to have a two-way with the gardener first. This is the stumbling block right here. Your husband wants the gardener to fuck you. He wants the gardener to fuck his wife. He wants there to be something in it for him. You have a little performance anxiety about having it be a show for your husband. Totally understandable. What do we do? What do you two do? My advice? Make out with the gardener. Don't fuck the gardener. You could make out with him in front of your husband and see how that feels. Your husband observing. Do it at a time. Assuming here the gardener consents, wants to make out with you in front of your husband, do it at a time where there's no possibility of upgrading to sex. Meet up with the gardener somewhere where you can't fuck the gardener and flirt and hang out and have a drink. And I don't know what the vibe is for your husband, what turns him on about maybe you fucking the gardener. You know, if it's cucky, if it's hot wifey, stag and vixen, these are things you need to parse with your husband, so that you know where you're trying to land this. But you can land this together. Oh my God, you already had the conversation about opening the relationship and having other partners. And the response was positive. And so, as is so often the case with two people in a long-term committed, closed relationship, tiptoeing to some degree of openness, you're going to have to take baby steps. You have performance anxiety about going from 0 to fucking the gardener in front of your husband. What you want to go is from 0 to 15, which is French kissing the gardener in front of your husband. And if that feels good, grinding with the gardener in front of your husband, if you guys go to a club or something, and if that feels good, work your way up. And then, you know, if your husband got to see you guys make out, got to see you grope, got to see heavy petting, maybe he's willing to then feel like there was something in it for him and step back for that first time the gardener plows you and not be in the room for that because he got to be in the room for some other stuff. There are compromises you can both make here, and you can both win. Husband gets to watch. Not every time, but the first couple of times. And those first couple of times don't have to be full penetrative sex. You're in a really good position to make this work. And fucking other people, opening the relationship in this way where the fucking other people, I don't want to say it's weaponized, but it is put into harness in such a way that it is the jumper cables. It is the, what are those paddles they use on people in ER shows on the chest? It has that effect on your husband's libido. It is the extreme move measure that can just zap your husband in such a way that it overcomes the mental health issues or the meds and the effect it's having on libido. It's a shock to his system that's so great and so arousing and so adventurous that not only will you be fucking the gardener every once in a while, of course, if the gardener's down, if the gardener consents, it's a very important part of it, but you'll be fucking your husband more too.
Hey, Dan. I'm a 40-year-old woman, and I was on a dating app the other day, and I was contacted by a 30-year-old guy, and he says that he is looking for someone he can trust because he is inexperienced. So he's wanting a friend with benefits so that he can gain some sexual experience. And he mentions he's been kissed a couple times and has had a blowjob once, and otherwise that's it. So I'm trying to figure out how to move forward with this. I think it's cute that he's looking for someone with experience, but I'm also wondering, it feels like he maybe needs a sex worker, but I'm also like entertained by the idea, and I also didn't really feel like a super strong connection with him, but I'm open to helping him out. I'm wondering what suggestions you may have for how to do this in a way that is gonna keep us both safe emotionally and physically. And yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if I've been with someone when it's their first time, aside from like many, many years ago.
Yeah, maybe he should just get a sex worker, and you could offer him that advice. And I know lots of kind, compassionate sex workers out there who have been people's first, and the kind, compassionate sex workers I know regard that as kind of a special role they play, a special trust, a kind of sacred, intimate function. That said, if this idea turns you on, breaking this guy in, being his first, if he appeals to you or this appeals to you, you could go for it. What you're going to have to do, though, is really drill down with this guy before you let this guy drill you down about what it is he wants and what his expectations might be. I was in a similar position many years ago, and I went for it, and I did it. But what I first had to really drag out of this guy was an assurance that what I was giving him was this. What I wasn't giving him was us. It wasn't about me. It was about this experience that he wanted to have to satisfy his own curiosity, to learn to be who he was, and that I could do this for him made me feel good about myself. And once we got to that place where we were talking about what it is he wanted, what it is he wanted to do, why he hadn't done it yet, which I think is an important part of the conversation you need to have with him. Why are you 30 and still a virgin? It felt good. It felt good to do it. But the whole time that I was doing it, that we were drilling each other down, it was really clear that it was this experience that he needed to have and take something away from. And I was giving it to him, but a relationship wasn't on the cards, on the table. That this was about this experience. If you can have a conversation with this guy, if you can vet this guy like my sex worker friends vet potential new clients for their own comfort and safety, and you feel safe and comfortable hooking up with him, it would be a mitzvah. It would be a good deed. And so I would encourage you to really talk to this guy about who he is, what he wants from you, how he might feel about you, that you make sure that he understands in his boner that this is just sex, just a good deed, and nothing else. And if you feel like he's been open and honest with you and you have a good feeling about him and it's about this, not us, go for it. That time I fucked that straight guy was a really good experience for both of us and a clarifying one for him. And we still chat. We still talk every once in a while. And it's good. And I'm glad I did it. And positive things came from it. No relationship was ever on the table. That did not come from it. It was clear going in that could not come from it. So just be clear about your motives here, your intentions, but also you need to get clarity about who he is, what he wants, and just the vibe. And if he gives you a creepy vibe, if he's 30 and a virgin and ready, and excited about the possibility, okay, maybe, great, go for it. If he's 30 and a virgin and seething with resentment about how unfair this is, if you get any sense of that, yeah, don't do it.
Hey, I don't know how to put this delicately, but I checked out your website like you wanted me to, and I gotta say, it really could use a lot of improvement. And what I recommend from experience is you should just switch over to Squarespace. Here are just a few of the things that you can do with Squarespace. Start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. You choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build your own online presence from the ground up, tailored to your special style and optimized for every device. Easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated, optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. And you can sell exclusive content on your site by adding a paywall to sell memberships or courses, or sell files your customers can download like PDFs, music, or ebooks. This would be cripplingly difficult for my band to set up on our own, so we're very glad to use Squarespace's tools. It's just so easy and it works perfectly. Head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/savage and use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/savage and use the offer code SAVAGE.
Yo, Dan, calling from Los Angeles. Question on behalf of myself and my husband. We like to do a lot of different stuff with his pee. And lately we were kind of curious about, would it be okay for him to pee in my ear? Anything to flag there health-wise?
Joining me to help tackle this question, Dr. Barak Gaster, professor of medicine and a general internal medicine primary care doctor at the University of Washington. Dr. Gaster is a frequent guest here on the Savage Lovecast, where he has, year after year, given sound medical advice to Savage Lovecast listeners with touchy questions, tricky questions they do not want to ask their own doctors. We always appreciate it when Dr. Barak takes time out of his busy schedule to join us, and he is here now in the studio. So, Dr. Barak, drawing on your years of medical training and clinical expertise, what advice do you have for this caller?
Don't do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Barak. In addition to his day job at the University of Washington and his responsibilities here as Savage Lovecast's go-to medical expert, Dr. Barak helped lead the development of the CDC's Healthy Brain Roadmap and has published on bioethics for the Hastings Center. And if that wasn't enough, Dr. Barak partners with investigators at the University of Washington's Alzheimer's Disease Research Center and has authored the nationally recognized Advanced Directive for Dementia, which people continue to download from the website dementiadirective.org. Dr. Barak, thank you so much for coming all the way down to the studio and coming on the show again. We really appreciate it. Well, hello there, penis havers. Sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and you never know when you're going to have to use your dick. We always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom, and Hims has the treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing access to affordable sexual health treatments, all from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments, such as chewable hard mints, proven treatments like Viagra and Cialis, or their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is simple and 100% online, no uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment options for you. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you and ships for free. No insurance is needed. Pay one low price for your treatments, online visits, ongoing shipments, and provider messaging. Hims has hundreds of thousands of subscribers that trust Hims. So if ED is getting you down, it's time you find the option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/savage. That's HIMS.com/savage for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/savage. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hi, Dan. I am a 30-year-old straight female living in the Midwest. I have been with my husband now for going on 9 years. We've been married for 4 years. When we first got together, he is the only relationship that I had ever waited like a month to have sex with him. Whereas before him, I was very promiscuous. I had also gotten out of a bad relationship before him. And so he's like the first gentleman, I guess. But here recently, the last few years or so, our sex life has completely tanked. I can't even tell you the last time that I've had sex. We are very monogamous. He did tell me one time that if he found out that I cheated on him, he would never talk to me again, and blah, blah, blah. And we've had this conversation before. Every time I bring it up to him, he tells me that he's aware that this is a problem, but he doesn't know how to fix it. I've suggested masturbating, getting some games to play together, like those little sexy games, and even trying maybe counseling either alone or together. And he doesn't really seem interested in any of the options that I've provided. So I was just wondering if you had any advice.
All right, I had a question for you, and it's kind of a personal question.
Okay.
Is your marriage sexless? When's the last time you and your husband had sex?
The last time that we had sex was March of this year. So 5 months ago.
And what was the frequency like before the last time?
Pretty much the same. Maybe I can count on one finger in the last year how often we are having sex.
All right, my first piece of advice for you is don't have kids.
Okay.
Am I too late?
No, you're not too late. But
okay.
That's something that I am hoping for one day. But
right now I want to be your spiritual diaphragm and advise you not to make the situation harder to unwind if that's what you need to do by having kids.
Yeah.
Once you have kids with somebody, then their needs have to be factored into decisions about what to do about a relationship that isn't meeting your needs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So can you live the rest of your life having sex once a year or less?
I don't know if I can. And I've brought this up to him before, and he has acknowledged that it's a problem. But every time I'm like, okay, maybe we try some couples counseling, or I brought home these date night games, that are,
mm-hmm.
But he's just not, we'll try it for a night and then he's over it. He's done.
All right. So he's willing to acknowledge it's a problem, but then he's signaling it's not a problem that he is motivated to do anything about, to solve.
Yeah.
And so that leaves you facing a choice between accepting the sexless marriage that seemed to be on offer. How's the rest of the relationship? Do you get along? Do you enjoy spending time together?
Yeah, very good. I love him very much. He's the man of my dreams other than that.
Okay, well, that's big.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, especially if what you want is a sexually exclusive relationship, which he does, then that imposes on you an obligation to meet your partner's reasonable sexual needs. And
I agree.
Life is long, life is complicated. We face health challenges. Sometimes we're so stressed out by work or the world that our libido is sort of in the tank for a while. And that the tide can go out. But if the tide stops coming back in, expecting your partner to sit there marooned on the sexless beach, to torture the metaphor forever, is unreasonable. And if you made a commitment to somebody to sexual exclusivity when sex was a part of the relationship, if sex exit the relationship, you need to renegotiate that aspect of the relationship. And what he's told you is, if you sleep with anybody else, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And that leaves you in the position of either accepting a sexless marriage and life, or saying to him, I am going to sleep with somebody else, your move.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to be over, but I I would like to have sex with you. If we are not going to have a sexual relationship, I am released from the monogamous commitment I made to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you are released from it too. Like, if there's just something about sex in the context of a long-term relationship that's not working for you anymore, let's stay together in a companionate marriage and love each other and support each other. Let's be like really discreet. We can have DADT or polyamory and we can present socially as monogamous, but you can't demand sexual monogamy from me if you refuse not only to meet my sexual needs, but even make any sort of effort in the direction of possibly being able to meet my sexual needs at some point in an indeterminate future.
Yeah.
Because we're going to couples counseling or trying.
Doing something like, and like when I talked to him about it, he's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, okay, but every time that you tell me you know, that just makes me like, you acknowledge that it's a problem, but you don't care enough to make it, to make it work.
It's going to get ugly.
Yeah.
Like if there's some other thing going on that you don't know about, it's only in the pressing of this issue that you'll find out what that is. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean like there's somebody else. Like maybe there's a medical problem. Maybe there's a medical condition. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a label and a pride flag for fucking everybody now. Maybe he's frasexual and it's just his sexual orientation that after a while with somebody, the closer he gets to them, the more he loves them, the less sexually aroused by them to the point of not being able to be sexual with them he becomes. Mm-hmm. And if that's true of him, you need to know that. And your informed consent has to be an ongoing consent in a long-term relationship. You get to renew your consent.
Yeah.
And I lose patience with guys like your husband because, I'm sorry, if it's a sexless monogamous relationship, then that means that you're the only person I don't have sex with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can have sex with other people. Mm-hmm. And if sex outside the relationship and it's discreet and never rubbed in anybody's nose makes it possible for you to stay married and continue to be the loving companions to each other that you are, then that allowance for sex outside the relationship could save your marriage.
Yeah.
What he's doing right now is he's risking your marriage by forbidding you.
Yeah.
By refusing to meet your needs and forbidding you to get your needs met elsewhere. Like he can't do that. He can't unilaterally declare your sexual life as an adult over because you made a monogamous commitment to him back when he was fucking you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I just have concerns if I brought that up, how that conversation would go.
It'll be a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
It'll be a shit show. And like you'll go to couples
counseling. I have a drink or two before then. And
I mean, I think there's a way to say it to somebody where you're like, I love you. I'm not going anywhere. Clearly, if, having sex once a day or a week was something I absolutely needed to be happy and be with you, I would have left already. I've proven to you my commitment. But I am not going to live a sexless life. What is that going to look like then?
Yeah.
How do we have each other, and how do I have some sense of sexual fulfillment and agency and control?
Yeah.
And
especially in my 30s,
Oh my God, women in their 30s are like teenage boys. Women in their 30s are like... I'm
blossoming. I want to adventure. I want to try things. And so, before I met him, I was promiscuous and I, tried several different things. And with him, it's very vanilla, which I'll take vanilla over nothing at all. You know what I'm saying?
You've got to get what you want, you have to be willing to risk what you have. Mm-hmm. This could end in divorce. You could take my advice and try to be as gentle and loving about this conversation as possible. And not only wind up divorced, but wind up the villain in the piece. Mm-hmm. Because he'll tell people you marched in and demanded an open relationship and he didn't sign up for that.
Yeah.
And you going to people, the same people, and saying, our marriage was sexless and I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I put open on the table instead of divorce because I still loved him. Mm-hmm. Like people, there's a lot of judgment and shame around open relationships. Everyone would be more comfortable if everybody just didn't ever want to have sex. And like, if one person was done with sex, the other person was like, I guess I picked the short straw and now I don't get to have sex for 50 years. Oh, well.
Yeah.
And that would make everybody else out there more comfortable. So yeah, you could wind up being the villain in the piece. But in the end, even if you are the villain in the piece and the relationship ends or the marriage ends, thank God you don't have kids yet. You could have this conversation before you have kids. 2 years later, when you're with somebody who wants to fuck you a lot and in a lot of different ways and is met you in this stage of your life where your sexual exploration and fulfillment is important to you and wants to meet those needs and be along with you for that ride, you'll look back on as, even if it comes to shit and you're the villain in the piece, it will have been worth it.
Mm-hmm.
To free yourself.
Yeah.
You only live one life, and you're going to either free yourself and stay married, or you're going to free yourself and get a divorce.
Yeah.
But you've got to, he said, this is my price of admission, no sex ever again. And you have to say, well, my price of admission is, if not with you, then with someone else every once in a while. And you're free to go if that's unacceptable. But I'm not going to stay.
I can't do this for my whole life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
A lot of people out there in your shoes, when people go in there and say our marriage is open or it's over and the marriage ends, everybody hears about it because they got a divorce. When somebody goes in there and says our marriage is open, it can be DADT, polyamory, or it's over and the marriage doesn't end, nobody hears about it. So we have this kind of skewed perception of the way that these conversations can go.
Yeah.
You could have this conversation and wind up in divorce court, or you could have this conversation and wind up with what you want and what you need and what you deserve.
Or at least like maybe he'll have like a come to Jesus moment is what I'm hoping.
Come to Jesus and then come in you. Both those moments concurrently.
Can we do that? Both of those. Yeah. So maybe if I have this conversation, sit him down like seriously and not take I don't know as an answer. And
yeah, you've no more delay. This is something you're going to fix in the next 3 months.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
I've always been a big backer of therapy here on the podcast, in my column, and in my personal life. Therapy really can help repair relationships that should survive. Therapy can give you the strength to end a relationship kindly, compassionately, that needs to end. Therapy can reduce stress, improve sleep. Feels weird to describe therapy this way as an atheist, but therapy, it is a godsend. That's why I recommend Talkspace. It can be challenging to find and meet with a therapist that's the right fit, but Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need, finding the right therapist, and actually meeting with that therapist accessible, easy, and affordable. Talkspace provides personalized treatment for individuals, couples, the LGBTQIA+ community, veterans, and teens. Talkspace therapy and psychiatry are covered by many insurance plans and employers. Most insured Talkspace members pay a copay of $30 or less. You can easily sign up online and get paired with a licensed provider that's the right fit for your needs, typically within 48 hours. You can also switch providers at no extra cost. And there's nothing like having appointments from the comfort and privacy of your own home. As a listener of this podcast, you will get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/savage and enter the promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/savage and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/savage, promo code SPACE80.
Hello, Dan, Nancy, and the tech-savvy at-risk youth. I am a 38-year-old cis gay man who's always been into guys older than myself. Generally, I've attracted the 60 to 70-year-old age range, but lately I've been looking for someone slightly younger than that for longevity's sake in a long-term relationship. I ran into a guy in early June. He's in his early 50s, and we hit it off. He's been out as bisexual for the past couple of years, but he has yet to be sexual with another man. We've had the conversation about pacing, what he's comfortable with, and taking things slow. And I'm okay rolling this out in a manner that is slower to which I've been accustomed to in the past. So last week you used the word boyfriend to describe me. I've already met some of his friends. I'm about to start meeting family, but we have not yet had an orgasm together. I phrase it in that way because I'm not expecting to go from 0 to raucous anal penetration. I'm happy to provide a safe space for him to discover and explore the pleasures of gay sex, We both value monogamy, and neither one of us is interested in a relationship model that's open or poly in nature. But Dan, I'm so horny, and this is the first relationship where I haven't established sexual compatibility very early on, and I'm not sure how to proceed. And so I guess my question boils down to what what's a fair line for me to draw, for myself or for the two of us? I see it as similar to not wanting to text over weeks or months with someone you met online only to meet in real life and find out that you just aren't compatible with that person. And so I'm really hesitant to continue investing in this just to find out in a few months we aren't sexually compatible. But I really don't want to rush this process. I totally respect that. And besides what I've just outlined to you, we are a good match. So at what point do I say I just have to walk away because I'm not getting the dick that I need as a gay man who loves sex, and balance that with the pacing of his own process and how good of a match we are on the levels that aren't sexual?
I'm all for taking things slow, but he's in his 50s. He's never slept with a man yet. There's slow, and then there's like unrealistic about the funeral home that looms on the horizon for us all. How slowly can he walk this? Everybody, please calm down. I'm not gainsaying this man's bisexuality. I was gay before I had gay sex for the first time. This guy can absolutely be bi before he has gay sex or male sex for the first time. But yeah, if what he wants is a monogamous relationship and what you want is a monogamous relationship, but you also want a sexual relationship, it is not unreasonable for you to want to determine if you're sexually compatible before you meet his family, before you start introducing each other to your friends, which you're already doing. You are making the mistake that people make when they're text for 6 months with somebody before they meet up for the first time. You have already made a large emotional investment in this person. If somebody's just DMing with somebody all day long, they met on a dating app and they become a kind of an important part of their life emotionally, and they haven't yet met, and then they meet and don't click, that can be heartbreaking in its own way because you've invested so much emotional energy, but also hopes for a future together with this person you haven't met. You've now done that with a person you haven't fucked. And you say sex is really important to you and sexual fulfillment and that sexual connection is really important to you. Say that to him. And if that's not something he wants, maybe what he wants, maybe he's mostly heterosexual but homoromantic. Maybe what he wants is a pretty much sexless companionate relationship with another dude, and you are that dude. You could definitely do that if you weren't also interested in or didn't also require a monogamous commitment. There are lots of male couples out there in what are loving, intimate, healthy, functional companionate relationships where they have sex with other people. You could be this man's boyfriend. You could be this man's husband and run off whenever you need sex and bang one of the hot 60 to 70-year-old dudes that you've primarily been attracted to sexually all your life. And if those aren't men that you ever wanted to pursue a relationship with, if that was bracketed off for you somehow as just sex but not intimacy, that none of those guys who were so much significantly older than you were anybody you wanted to be with or could picture yourself with in a relationship, you could have your cock, all your grandpa cock, and a loving, committed partner at home too, if, again, monogamy wasn't what you wanted. But if monogamy is what you want, and monogamy is what he wants, you're going to have to start fucking each other sometime to figure out whether you're going to keep getting in deeper and deeper emotionally. And if he won't fuck you, yeah, you're going to have to end it. You're going to have to stop throwing good time after bad here. I mean, it's not been a bad time. You've enjoyed this relationship. You enjoy him, but you do not yet know if this relationship has the kind of long-term potential that you're already pretending it does if you're being introduced to family and friends. You're going to have to call the question. You're going to have to demand that he produce the dick. And if he won't or can't, or if it comes out that that's not what he wants out of his committed, intimate relationship, well, then you're going to have to reassess together whether it's monogamy you want or it's each other that you want. All right, it's time for the most challenging part of the show for me personally, and that's the part where I shut up and let my listeners take over the advice-giving duties. First up, some of the comments about last week's show posted to the very lively comment threads at savage.love. Says Ted the bellhop, to the engagement pusher who got ghosted by her ex, think really hard about whether you were chasing the person or the goal. I have a buddy whose girlfriend pushed him into an engagement, then pushed him into a wedding, then pushed him into having a child. Then once she had what she wanted, she pushed herself down on another guy's cock. Now he's a broke single dad. This is probably the nightmare your ex was afraid of. Tons of other comments for that particular caller, the woman who pressured her boyfriend into proposing to her and then got dumped right after the proposal, including some people pointing out that her ex-fiancé for a day didn't ghost her, as the caller claimed. He broke up with her and then blocked her. That's a very different thing. Says BGN, Dan and Emily talked about the days before ghosting was a thing. Ghosting has always been a thing, says BGN. It just got a name in the age of text messages and always being available for communication. I remember the days before cell phones when we would get stood up. So ghosting isn't new. It just has a name now and feels frustrating because you know your message that is being ignored went through. And finally, says Dutch Lady, Dear Dan, a quibble. You often say women can't come from PIV alone. Then you usually, but not always, qualify that by saying 75% of women can't come from PIV alone. Surely 1 in 4 women is a lot of women. Many women can't come from PIV. True, a majority of women can't come from PIV. 3/4 of women can't come from PIV. Take your pick. I think actually, straight men should be encouraged to assume a new cis woman partner of theirs is one of the 75% and then be pleasantly surprised if they landed in bed with one of the 25%. If I'm probably in bed with a woman who's among the 75% was the operating assumption that straight men made, we wouldn't see the orgasm gap we do in opposite sex sexual encounters. So I'm sticking with women can't come from PIV alone as my opening shot and emphasizing and re-emphasizing that. And then every once in a while, qualifying it because I want straight guys not to tell themselves that by some miracle, every woman they've ever slept with was one of the 25%. All right, for more listener feedback that I respond to, sometimes at unreasonable length, be sure to check out Struggle Session. A special bonus column for our Magnum subs goes up most Thursdays at savage.love. And now, more listener feedback. Your response calls.
Hi, this is a response call in response to the person whose friend was reacting belligerently to anyone asking about or making incorrect assumptions about her baby's gender. It sounds to me like this woman has decided to have a political statement rather than a baby, or at least that's how she's treating them. I have an NB kid, and my baby was assigned male at birth, but for whatever reason, people always assumed that they were a girl. And I never reacted aggressively to that misconception. It was never ill-intended. I never even corrected it because they were a baby. It literally didn't matter if the old lady in the grocery store was like, what a beautiful little girl you have. They just thought my baby was cute and wanted to say something nice about it. So my answer was always, thank you. And as for how to handle common questions about her baby's gender that she doesn't want to answer, I think there's a really simple answer to the question, oh, are they a boy or a girl? And you can just simply say, they haven't decided yet. And wish them a nice day and move on. I think you can be authentic to how you want to raise your child, but also not a sanctimonious dick about it.
Hey, Dan, I'm calling in response to the caller whose friend is keeping the gender identity of their baby I guess, top secret. The only thing that popped to mind for me is what if the child was born intersex and therefore she does not want others to see this child's genitalia, because at one point the child would have to choose, meaning whatever innately comes out of them, how they identify. And also the genitalia itself doesn't necessarily clear out the gender identity. We know a lot of trans people who have genitalia that they don't associate with. So the only thing I thought of was that. What if this child is born intersex and the parent just doesn't want to subject the child to be looked at in whatever else people would do? I've never seen an intersex genitalia.
This is in response to episode 926, The Baby. I think that we're making the genitals thing even weirder than it needs to be. Your friend just went through pregnancy, childbirth, single mom to a newborn. So many aspects of her life have been wildly out of her control. And I think it's pretty common in those situations to pick some small part of our life and just fixate on it and try to micromanage it. My neighbor got through COVID by manicuring the shit out of his lawn because it gave him the illusion of control that really helped him in that moment. I don't think this is all that different. And in principle, I think it's just a different flavor of how a lot of new parents have these militant parenting ideals. Maybe it's no screen time till they're 5, or they're only going to play with wooden Montessori beads, or they're only going to eat homemade organic food. And, none of this really lasts. A lot of parenting is just learning that you have to let that shit go, and it's fine. So I think it's going to blow over. It has to. As the parent of a toddler, I can tell you that as soon as this kid is walking and talking, they will insist on making their genitals everybody's business. I can't even get through a trip to the grocery store without my kid offering to show his penis to the cashier or just whipping it out. So my advice is to just be patient. Don't intervene. Don't talk to her about it. Just wait it out. If you don't want to go out in public with her because it's weird, that's fine. Don't. But you can still show up at her house, bring dinner, hang out in an environment that is comfortable for all of you. And sooner or later, she will come to this realization. She'll let it go in her own time and on her own terms, and you can just move on.
And we're going to leave it there. Got a question or a comment for the Lovecast? 3 ways to get them to us. You can record your question or your comment at savage.love/askdan, or you can make a voice memo on your very own phone and email it to us at q@savage.love, or you can call us on our landline and leave us a message at 206-302-2064. Hump Part 2, Hump 2024 Part 2 kicks off next month, September 6th. We've got 25 brand new, mind-blowing, funny, kinky, interesting pornographic films coming to your city. You do not want to miss seeing Hump in a theater, and you don't want to miss Hump Part 2 if you saw Hump Part 1. Get your tickets now at humpfilmfest.com, where you can also stream Hump 2024 Part 1 and other special Hump programs. Remember, you also can be in Hump. There's no fee to enter, and every filmmaker that makes it into the festival gets a cut of every ticket sold. Submissions for Hump 2025 are due December 6th. For all the details and information you need to submit a film for Hump, go to humpfilmfest.com/submit. Follow me on Instagram and Threads at Dan Savage. Follow me at Blue Sky at Dan Savage. Follow TherapyJeff on Instagram and Threads at TherapyJeff. His podcast, Big Dating Energy, is available on all podcasting platforms. And Jeff's terrific new book, Big Dating Energy, is available in bookstores now. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech savvy at-risk youth. And Nancy, we will all be back at you next week on an installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you. We're done.